The bigger news is that Charles Leclerc's Ferrari has been found to be underweight post-race. It's a whole kilogram
Oh, yeah.
underweight. And I say a whole kilogram because it is a whole kilogram. Even if it was, 1/10 of a kilogram underweight, they would have still reported it. So Ferrari will be meeting with the stewards later. They've been summoned, as we say in the world of Formula One. And usually these situations mean a disqualification. So there's a very good chance that Leclerc, who drove a fantastic race without a front wing flap, okay, was quicker than, Lewis Hamilton, who had a very intact Ferrari himself, okay, just suddenly will find himself disqualified from the race. And strangely, guys, Leclerc said that they had the pace to win the race today in China. And just, they didn't have the pace to even defend against Verstappen and even attack George Russell. But he actually says they had the pace and the potential to win the race in China. Maybe this is where Frederick Vasseur will say that actually our season is going to start in Suzuka. I don't know.
But he's kind of right about that, Sundaram, because Leclerc himself said that in race pace, we're right there with McLaren. And we saw the lap times. They were very, very similar. In spite of Leclerc actually having a broken end plate. I was amazed at how little the difference was. But after that in qualifying, that's where they really lost it. And then everything spirals down from there.
I think that's always been the case. Not always been the case. That's been the case in the first two rounds. We've seen that Ferrari is not really qualified in the top four in both of the rounds this season. And Leclerc did mention that they are better in race pace, but in qualifying or over one lap, they're really not able to stitch it together. And that largely comes down to finding the right setup. It worked for Lewis in the sprint, but then they realized that on race day, we really have to manage the tires and we really have to limit tire degradation, move the setup, and it really went away from him. I was really surprised that despite losing, half an end plate or an entire end plate on one side, he still had the pace. He was literally on the rear of Hamilton, and the pace was really separated by a tenth or two, and it really wasn't more. And the fact that he was so close to him, he was really hurting his tires. In that regard, I think if you look at it in entirety, it was very surprising that Lewis did not suffer a puncture, and it's probably a good decision that Ferrari did not change the front wing. They would have lost another further 8 seconds. So it could have probably been worse for Ferrari. So where they eventually finished, where was it, 5 and 6? It's probably the best that they could have done considering the sort of situation they had.
Wait a minute. I think Ferrari is actually going to face a double disqualification. I've been busy typing away because I just got news from race control. The skid wear of car number 44 was checked. There were 3 measurements taken: 8.6 millimeters left hand side, car center line 8.6 millimeters, and car right hand side 8.5 millimeters. As this is less than the 9 millimeter minimum thickness required by the technical regulations, I am referring this matter to the steward. So by my reckoning, yes, Sanjay, what? That's what my reaction also was. But I have a feeling this is it. Ferrari is going to face a double disqualification from
Do you remember the last time
the
this
Chinese
happened?
Grand Prix. No.
Leclerc and Hamilton were disqualified from the US Grand Prix in 2023, and Hamilton had the same reason for it, skid wear. So it's all coming back once again.
And in that race, Lewis had a podium, didn't he? Leclerc had that podium and Lewis had it taken away.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Who wants a fun stat? So Lewis Hamilton has had a disqualification with McLaren, with Mercedes, and now with Ferrari.
So Leclerc has had an underweight car. Basically, a kilo extra of something was used or let go during the race. So in the past, we've seen brakes end up leaking water because teams had stored water there as a means to show their car to be overweight. That's long in the past. Maybe it could be that they've just used an extra fuel, just an extra kilo of fuel, Sundaram, or something like that. Maybe the spare wing that Kunal was talking about earlier, maybe that was heavier than the normal wing that they weighed at the end of the race, something like that. That's what we heard too. So a combination of factors, clearly.
I mean, it can always
honestly, it's just down to extra fuel use. Literally, that's my reading, because the FIA has actually explained it very well that they used a spare wing because Leclerc sort of had that front wing flap not there. The spare wing was 2 kilograms heavier than the damaged one during the race. So they put all those checks. Ferrari also confirmed the conformity of the weighing scales and all of that. So Literally, it's just more fuel usage in the case of Charles Leclerc. And, in the case of Lewis Hamilton, it's just a car that's bottomed out more than it should. And that's probably where it's gone south for Ferrari. My goodness, imagine 0 points after that pole that they had in sprint qualifying, the win that they had in sprint qualifying. Incredible.
They're pointless.
And if you remember this, if you remember Spa from last year, even that was anticipated to be a 2-stop, but I think George went for a 1-stop. So he had worn off so much more tread on his tires that he had lost a little bit more weight than usual. That's also another thing. So in the case of Charles, maybe that could also have been the reason that there's probably a little bit more tread that's worn off. In the case of Lewis having plank wear, the fact that China has been resurfaced and it's a lot more smoother, cars are running lower than they would have done as usual. So the cars are running 3 seconds quicker than last year. So cars are lower. That's why there is a lot more plank wear. You wouldn't obviously see that from the sprint because sprint is only 19-20 laps. But over an entire Grand Prix, you really get to know who's kind of got it wrong and who's got it right.
I'll tell you what
Seriously.
we've come to. We now have official confirmation that the two Ferraris have been disqualified. That is Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton's experienced everything in the last 7 days, from communication issues to the first sprint pole, the first sprint race win, to the first disqualification as well. Now he'll sit in the Suzuka press office and he'll still be telling you critics, I don't even know what to say. Can you just stop criticizing me? Because I'm still trying to get a hang of this team and get things going. And then, of course, nobody cares, or not too many people, unfortunately, care about it. But Pierre Gasly has also been disqualified from the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix. So that has also been confirmed.
This is what's called the Ferrari orientation program. You get to know of all the team's problems straight away, and then you deal with it.
Yeah. And you're aware of all of these problems. You walk in knowing exactly what's going to happen, full well aware that something or the other will go wrong. And it has. It is phenomenal.